Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to look at which average is best. So we've seen how to work out each of the averages. We're now going to have a look at which one's best to use when. Before we start, here's your starter. 2 questions here. Give yourself 7 minutes. Pause the video now and give them a go. Here are those solutions. So again, just mark off the work that you've just done. So averages are used widely in everyday life. We can see it in the news. It's used to predict different grades and so on. Let's have a look at a few different news articles, all stating the average. So this is some really relevant work that's used in everyday life. However, we do need to be careful when reading those news articles. As we've seen, averages differ depending on which one we calculate. So sometimes when we do questions, we could work out each of the averages, so mean, mode, median, and range, and they're not always the same number, but they are all averages. So people can choose to use a specific average for their advantage. Let's have a look at what I mean by this. So let's say a business has 6 workers' salaries, so how much they earn a year, as 24,000, 25,000, 23,000, 22,000, 24,000, and 80,000. So we've got 6 different salaries there. If we calculated the different averages, we would get the mode is 24,000, the median is 24,000, but the mean is 33,000. So we can see the average means sort of the most common, the typical value you'd get paid. And we can see that most people would get about the mid-20s, wouldn't they? Ranging from about 22 to 25,000. Whereas this person here is a bit of an anomaly, an extreme value of 80,000. They still work for the same business, but maybe they're like a manager or something like that. So let's say when a company is maybe looking to hire some people, their advertising could say, oh, the average salary is £33,000. So they're not wrong. One of the averages did come out as 33,000, the mean. However, the actual most typical value would have been more suited to the mode or median, around 24,000. So people can use the specific average they want in order to help them with their business or to help them bring their point across. It may not always be the most typical value. We need to be able to sort of have a look at the mean, median, and mode and sort of choose which one actually represents the data the best. First of all, we're just going to have a look at the pros and cons of some of the averages. So the pros of using the mean is it includes all the numbers. We add all the numbers up, we divide by how many there are. So every bit of data is included. The cons, though, are it's affected by extreme values. So like when we saw on that question just then, the mean changed to a lot higher because of that £80,000 salary, whereas actually it should have been a bit lower. The pros for median is it's not affected by extreme values. So the median for that last question we saw was 24,000, which was more suited because it ignores that value of 80,000, which was extremely high compared to the rest. The cons, however, is it does only look at the middle values, doesn't it? It sort of excludes anything else either side, so it doesn't include all the data. For the mode, we've got 2 pros. It's not affected by extreme values. So again, it was 24,000 for that last question, which wasn't affected by the extreme value of 80,000. And it's also the only average that can be used with words. The cons are, however, sometimes we can get no mode if there's no repeated values. So we're going to be looking at questions like this. I record the distance I drove each day for 2 weeks. The first part I have to find the mean, median and mode of the data. We've already seen how we've done that, so I've put my answer up there in yellow. I worked out the mean was 7 miles, the median was 3.2 miles, and the mode was 3 miles. B and C is what we're more working on today. Why are some values higher or lower than others? So why is the mean 7 miles? Well, if I have a look at that data, Some days I drove absolutely 0 miles in the 2 weeks, and sometimes I drove a lot of miles, 35 miles, so there's a large range. So the mean is 7 miles because remember we include all the data, so it's affected by all values. So it is slightly higher because we've included that 35 and 23. The median is 3.2. That's a little bit lower and a little bit more accurate because it ignored the extreme values. It's ignored 35 and 23. And the mode is 3. It has one value that is lower than it, so that's the 0, and 8 values higher. So that doesn't seem that it's sort of in the middle. It doesn't seem that it's a good representative. So having a look at those different values, 7 miles, 3.2 and 3, I would say that the median is the best one to go with, because if we have a look, a lot of the values range from 0 to 35. Well, 35 is an extreme value, and most of the values are actually around the 3 mark. Therefore, I'd go for the median as the best representative. Have a go at this question here. So work out the mean, median, and mode, and then think about why maybe some of the values are higher or lower than others and which pieces of data are affecting it. Pause the video now and give that a go. So from the question you've just done, you should have got the mean is 33.13, the median is 27.5, and the mode as 10. So looking at the values, we've got 15 minutes travelling to work, 60 minutes travelling to work, 5, 10, 10, 70, 55 and 40. So a real big range there. The mean seems to be a lot higher than the median or the mode because it's taken in all values. So it's taken in the 70, which was quite an extreme value. The median is unaffected by those extreme values and therefore is a little bit lower because it's just taking the middle value. And the mode, which is just the most common, was 10. But 10 doesn't seem to be the most typical value. We've got a lot of values that are higher than it. Most of them are, there's only one value lower than 10, and the rest are all above. So that really doesn't represent the data. So for this question here, I would say that either the mean or the median are correct. The mode is obviously not correct because it doesn't take into account any of the other values and it doesn't represent it correct. So if you said the mean or median seemed to be about right, that's great. Okay, so it's your turn now. You're going to spend about 15 minutes on this, so 5 minutes for each question. You'll ask the same sort of question. So first of all, you're going to find the mean, median and mode, comment on the results, and then you've got to say which average you would use. So that's for the first question. The second and third, you are comparing two things. So in the second question, you're comparing males to females, and in question 3, you're comparing USA to France in an athletic competition. So for those questions, I've got a little hint there. Find each of the mean, median and mode and use that then to compare which one you think is better. So have a look at those numbers, what do they mean, and therefore make a decision which team or which male or female do you think are better. Pause the video now and give that a go. So here's the answers for question 1. You've got the mean is 4.2625, median is 3.65, and we had no mode because there's no repeated values. If we're advertising for this company, I want to sort of have the highest speed, don't I? I want the highest number in megabytes. So I would have gone for the mean of 4.2625 because it was the highest value. Second question, we've got the male and female mean, median and mode there. Looking at those, so the mean for the males was 48 compared to females which were higher, 61. The median for the females was also higher, and the mode we couldn't compare because females had no mode. So looking at mean and median, the females on average did better. However, the males were probably more consistent because if we have a look at the ranges, there was only a 48 mark difference between the top male student and the bottom, whereas there's 70 different for the female. So there was someone who did really, really well and then someone who did not so well. So females have more varied results. Last question. you've got the mean, median and mode for US and France. So we can see the mean was higher for USA, the median was higher for USA as well, and the mode again we can't compare because we've got no mode for USA. Well, we've got to think about the context. We're looking at a 100-meter sprint. So when we are doing a running race, we want to have the smallest amount of time. So we actually want the lower number. So that means actually France had a lower time for the mean when all the values were considered, because every single player's time was added up and divided by how many there were. So France did better, and I would say we'd use the mean for that because all the values are included, whereas the median only looks at the middle two, so that's maybe in two of the athletes compared to the whole team, which is considered with the mean.